I just pressed the let's go live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Yeah, the camera adds a couple of pounds. And of course, when you wear extra small medium shirts, makes you look a little bit better. That's a little secret. Is this thing on? Oh no, it is. Hey, are the tubes working? It is working. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gov't. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we have some business to attend to. We've got the Donald Trump indictment disaster. Of course, this is coming out of Georgia, and yesterday on the program, we were racing through the proceedings in Georgia to see if they were going to come to an indictment. Why? Because there was a little bit of a leak that came out of the Big Fani. And the leak was that the charges dropped, and so they had to match the leak. In other words, they had witnesses that were scheduled to testify today that they accelerated very quickly, and then they got it all done late last night. Big Fani, the biggest Fani in Georgia, came out and announced yet another indictment, indictment number 4. Whoa, shocking. And this one's actually kind of amazing. It's insane. And so we're going to go through it in detail. And then we're going to parse through what she had to say. So I want to go through the proceedings. They gave us a little bit of clarity on what happened with the leaked document. We're going to watch. It was like a behind the scenes, almost a reality show. Like this is a close up from inside. I think that's the court clerk or the bailiff. I mean, very strange behavior. And they carried this thing out into the judge, and the judge got it. He's like, many pages here. And then he did his little performative drama class theater routine. And then the Big Fani, the biggest Fani in Georgia, came out, and she did a press conference for like 10 minutes. And so we are going to listen to it. I'm going to fast forward through a bunch of it because she sits there and she announces everybody's name. And she does that thing when they're very dramatic about it. Like, Donald John Trump. Relax. Just say the name and move on, will you? For crying out loud. We got a campaign statement from Donald Trump, and so we'll read through that. They actually put together a bit of a response. All of that is what we'll get to in the first segment, just to see what happened there. And then they had this late night announcement, so kind of a joke. Then we're going to go through the actual indictment itself. And this is really good news for Trump. I mean, he told us that he needed one final indictment to win. And boom, we got it yesterday. We've been waiting for it. We knew it was going to be 4. And it's really, arguably 5 with the superseding indictment. And there will probably be yet other indictments. In D.C., we're expecting a seditious conspiracy charge at some point, if they're really serious about this, as they keep saying they are. But he says he needed 4 indictments to secure his election. One more. Bingo, baby. We got it yesterday. So these morons don't even know what they're doing. They continue to indict Donald Trump as they flail around. This is the sign of a sinking ship. You know, they're all just in panic mode. Indict him again. Indict him again. And what else can we do? Indict him again. And so it's this lunacy, little signs of a failing power. Not necessarily the United States, but certainly this party and this method of government. So we've got the Georgia indictment. We'll go through 98 pages. We'll hit it pretty quickly. I'm not going to indulge too much in it because it's just whacked. But we'll see all the various acts, like Donald Trump made a phone call, illegal. Mark Meadows sent a text message, illegal. Donald Trump filed a petition, illegal, and so on and so forth. And so Donald Trump has said that there will be a news conference happening in less than 1 week in Bedminster, New Jersey, where he's going to have a conclusive report that's going to detail all of this stuff. And so we'll see what he says about that. Then I want to just highlight this extreme double standard and just point out that it sounds like Democrats have now also committed multiple felonies. I mean, they're gleeful that Donald Trump is being charged here in Georgia. They're like, oh, wow, we've got Hillary laughing it up with Rachel Maddow, who I think works 1 day a week now. And she comes out of retirement when she has to talk to Hillary. But she's not even hardly working. But they had the special interview where they were playing patty cake with each other over there on MSNBC. And they're saying it's a really shocking, sad state of affairs that we have this problem in our country where Donald Trump could say these things. and wreck American democracy by challenging and contesting elections. Well, very curious. A lot of people have been digging up some old clips here, and there's one from the RNC that's 24 minutes of election loss crying from the Democrats. Stolen this and stolen that. And so we're not going to watch all 24 minutes of it, but we will hit a minute because there is Hillary Clinton, first and foremost, who is saying that she had the election stolen from her. And when she was never elected, I mean, she never became president. She tried twice, lost both times. What a loser. Trump at least got elected. So they cried about it a lot. Rachel Maddow, who is also somebody who is thrilled that Trump, who was the president, has been prosecuted. She was doing the same thing. She was questioning his legitimacy because of Russians all the way back in 2016. And it's not just Hillary Clinton who failed as a presidential candidate. There's also a failed governor known as Stacey Abrams, who never got elected. I mean, she tried and lost and then cried about it for a long time. And a lot of people on the left are saying, Trump can't let it go. Trump can't get over 2020, blah, blah, blah. And that this is some sort of an aberration. Stacey Abrams has been screaming about this stuff since 2018. And I'm waiting for the indictment for her and for Hillary and for Rachel Maddow. A RICO indictment by some red state attorney general against these people who have been contesting elections for years now. So we'll get back into that. And then finally, the big news, or some shocking news, I guess, from yesterday was that Hunter Biden is claiming this immunity deal. Hunter said that I'm immune because we executed this diversion offer. It's not between you, judge. They told the judge to get bent. And I wrote it here. They said, F you to the court, basically. And remember, they said the defendant, Hunter, and his counsel, the lawyers, wish to thank the court for its attention to this case. In other words, get bent, you're uninvited, go home, get out of my house. And then Hunter's lawyers filed a motion to withdraw right after that, which means that they are no longer on the case at all. Christopher Clark, the same guy who made this argument, now says, I got to get off the case. Why? Because I'm about to be a witness when the government says we don't have immunity. The prosecutors are rejecting the immunity claim. Hunter's claiming we've already got it. It's already a done deal. So it's going to be a battle over this deal, which was created. This whole deal was created by, guess who? David Weiss, who just got appointed to be the special counsel. So whether the immunity deal exists or not, Hunter is claiming it. David Weiss is claiming he doesn't have it. So David Weiss is now going to be appointed on top of this totally botched plea deal to investigate more crimes or something. It's lunacy. So we'll go through that. The judge wants an update. We'll check in on the court docket because there was something that was due today, and we'll see if it hits the docket by the time we get to this segment. And we've got a couple clips. The media say Hunter Biden is under attack. Just he's being, nobody has faced this much scrutiny as much as Hunter Biden did, a private citizen. And Cruz is here with the clip saying this whole thing is political. Also, you're going to hear him shill his podcast because that's what everybody does now. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. All right. So anyways, my friends, we've got a lot to get to. As you can see, if you were a member, if you joined us this morning, we had a very great conversation this morning about a lot of stuff, including we came across this letter when we were hitting the headlines. We were doing some general reaction, indictment Georgia hangover stuff, because a lot of people were up, waiting for this, and the government or the politicians were all issuing their statements. And so we were poking around, but we came across this interesting letter from the Judiciary Committee about geofence warrants that were being used on January 6th. And so they're demanding answers from Merrick Garland. How many of these geofences, like digital fences using your cell phone data, did they create for January 6th? And why didn't they create those same geofence warrants for the BLM Summer of Love protest in Minneapolis and elsewhere around the world? So, of course, that was a lot of fun. If you wanted to join us as a member, we'd love to have you. Our home base is watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we do stick around for our after party. So if you're a member, stick around after the show. You can also join up on YouTube. We do daily morning live streams for our members. We try to really deliver for our members, and all members have access to a private Telegram group where the chat never ends. It goes on and on, my friends. You can also stay connected by heading over to robertgovea.com, where we have our brand new website, where if you see anything in the mind map that we go through today, if you want access to the PDFs or the video files or any of that stuff, you can get it. You just go to robertgovea.com, sign up to get access to the mind map. You'll also sign up for our daily newsletter, where you'll get reports delivered to your inbox in case you happen to miss anything here on the show. You can get these stories delivered right to your inbox. All of these are now available on the website, robertgovea.com. Click the reports button and you can read through the news. So for example, if you can't watch the full show, you can get a summation of the show here on the website. And we appreciate you signing up for the newsletter, because that's how we'll stay in touch in case anything happens here. That's where, if YouTube gives us the strike-a-roo, then that's how we'll stay in touch. And so I appreciate you joining us there. Now, before we get into it, we got to make sure we're healthy, because we've got some heavy lifting. We want to be nutrified and fortified. And one way to do that is with our friends over at Field of Greens, which helps us lose those leftover pandemic pounds, right? And how sick are you, though, of all the ads for the weight loss pills and the fad diets? We've all seen them. They're everywhere. We've all tried them. We've all been there. We've all done that. They just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Sounds complicated, but it's really not. We do that, the weight would probably just start falling off. But look, vegetables, I know, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? Plus my strawberries go bad in like 3 days anyways. Let's talk about Field of Greens. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. So let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. Check out the label just on Field of Greens, and there's a lot of other really great stuff there. Fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% off your first order with code Robert. And it's a very good thing to do because the vegetables want to be eaten. You're going to be making their dreams come true, especially this little radish. Look at this little guy. He's just poking up over there. He's like, hey, don't forget about me. All right, so eat your radishes too. All right, so let's get into it. On the day, starting with Big Fani out of Georgia. Fani Willis, the biggest Fani in Georgia, botches the indictment of Donald Trump. Now, this has been something she's been working on for a long time, so we were expecting precision. We wanted accuracy. We wanted a timetable. We wanted this to go off without a hitch, but it did, because Big Fani kind of screwed the whole thing up. It started off with a leaked document, or what they called a fictitious document, that had Donald Trump's charges articulated on the internet before he was even charged, before the grand jury had even finished voting. They were published when they were on witness like 5 out of 10. We're all going, that's curious. How do they know what the charges are? And that it's an open case with a case number assigned to court with a judge when it hasn't even been official yet. Well, they did it. And then after that, it was all just strange. So when the charges leaked, they accelerated this. We know that there were witnesses that were scheduled for Tuesday, and that those witnesses suddenly were urged to show up there and testify on Monday so that they could make the charges match the leak and get the whole thing done without people being able to claim that they screwed it up. And so this is what they said in response. This is their statement. They said, all right, look, we know the charges leaked out there a little bit, but we've got an update. They say this comes out from the Fulton County clerk of the courts for immediate release. The clerk provides an update on the grand jury documents that leaked out. They say, the office of the clerk announces that midday on October 14th, when Trump was indicted, a media outlet called Reuters, known as Sarah Lynch, she's the one I believe who broke this, utilizing the Fulton County press queue, obtained a docket sheet and shared it with other media outlets, who then released the sample working document related, see that, the working document sample, related to the former president, Donald Trump, reporting that an indictment had been returned. Upon learning of the mishap, Fulton County, and it sounds to me like they're blaming the mishap on the media. So you just dumb journos out there, how dare you misunderstand what their documents are? It was your mishap, not theirs. The Fulton County Clerk of Superior and Magistrate Courts, Shay Alexander, immediately removed the document and issued correspondence notifying the media that a fictitious document was in circulation and that no indictment had been returned by the grand jury. Fictitious? It came from the courts. In anticipation of issues that arise with entering a potentially large indictment, Alexander, and they're naming this guy too, charges that pre-exist in Odyssey, a court system, to test the system, he used charges that pre-exist in Odyssey to test the system and conduct a trial run. Unfortunately, the sample working document, which happened to match the actual document exactly, led to the docketing of what appeared to be an indictment, but which was in fact only a fictitious docket sheet. Because the media has access to documents before they are published, and while it may have appeared that something official had occurred because the document bore a case number and a filing date, it did not include a signed true or no bill, nor an official stamp with Che Alexander's name, thereby making the document unofficial and a test sample only, which really matched the real thing. Hours later, after receiving the true bill presented to the judge, Robert McBurney, and we're going to watch this whole thing happen because they filmed it like a reality show. It's Fani's big 15 minutes. Clerk Alexander executed the filing with a file stamp, and moments later, she made the filing public. The office understands the confusion that this matter caused and the sensitivity of all court filings. We remain committed to operating with an extreme level of efficiency, accuracy, and transparency. Media members can be expected to be notified of any and all filings in real time and will be provided access to filings, what is this, via equitable communication. The heck kind of communication is that? Equitable communication? Wow. All right. So that's what's going on there in Georgia. That's their excuse for leaking the documents, which basically was a carbon copy of the actual filing. And so these are the people who are there assembling all of this, all these extreme accuracy people. This came over from Fox News.
As well, what do you expect, Alina?
I think we know what we expect because they leaked it by accident because some clerk accidentally filed it a few hours ago. There's going to be counts. It's going to be RICO. We all know what it is because we have a leaky AG, prosecutor, and DAs in this country.
Leaky.
This is ridiculous.
Leaky Fani.
The are even watching this right now, frankly. I mean, it's unprofessional, it's unethical, and it's un-American.
It is unprecedented. We don't often get behind the scenes camera footage of the process inside a court. It makes it feel like it's almost part of the show.
It is part of the show. This is a show. It's a political show. Fani, I can do TV too. It is not okay what you are doing. This is unacceptable. The fact that we have cameras and press sitting there, but I have not seen the indictment as his general counsel for Safe America. I have no indictment yet in front of me. How is that possible and how is that okay?
When do you expect to see one?
All the media is just following in there. Now, this is curious because Alina is commenting on Fox News cameras, which are standing right there. Fox is like, oh, let's get in there, baby. The Fox guy's like, he's listening on the earphone. He's like, what should I do here? Alina's like upset at me, and she's kind of smoking hot. So should I go in? Producer's like, yeah, go in. Just go in anyways. And it's really good footage, so just go in anyways. And so he's like, all right, I'm going in. And so he's, and the media's there. Everybody's on their cell phones. It's like a reality show.
You know when I'll see it? When the New York Times or you guys send it to me. That's when I'll see it because that's the way our country is operating these days. It's just a despicable situation. It really is. I have no words at this point. I have no words. This is the fourth indictment in months. It's political. It's election interference. And it is obvious. And if you're not awake yet, I don't really know what it's going to take for you. I really don't.
She's right. It's time to wake up, my friends. Brilliant analysis from Alina Abba. So now after you saw that little assembly line, like they're marching the indictment down to present in front of the judge, like Lion King or something, and you have this, Simba, with the indictment. And then we have Judge Robert McBurney, who's just waiting there. I mean, he can't wait. So the media is sitting there with bated breath. They're all just sitting around. Oh, here it comes. We're going to walk it through. Here it is. Dun, dun, dun. The big momentous event.
Is it evening or night?
Evening or night. I don't know where I am.
Thank you.
It's late. It's late. You guys are cramming this thing through. Very somber, very serious moment. Flipping through all the different documents.
Hungry.
Yeah. Looks good. Is there anything on there?
1 second. Okay, just making sure all of this is on there.
Just making sure Trump's on there. You know, he didn't say that, but you know.
Mr. Royals, everything went as it should have in front of the grand jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah,
All right.
Fani did a
Ms.
great
Alexander,
job.
you're prepared to take this? I guess I'm delivering it to the clerk. You'll maintain custody of it from here?
Yes, sir.
And so they did about 10 witnesses yesterday. We had that clip from CNN. CNN said that they were on witness 5 of 10. That was after the document leaked. Prior to that, they were on witness 1 or 2. There were some people floating around. And they really accelerated everything to squeeze it all in here.
All right. Those are for you.
Hand it off.
Do you take the certification or does it go with Madam Clerk? All right. Thank you all. Yes, you too.
Okay, so I don't know what the process is in Georgia, or I've never done a RICO case in Georgia or any felony case in Georgia in any way, shape, or form. But I don't know that this is as dramatic as it always is. Is every indictment this dramatic? Do they have cameras in the courtroom? Do they let all the press in? Do they do this walk thing where they bring in all the security to walk the indictment like it's the nuclear codes? Oh, don't let it. It's a big, just dramatic thing. And the judge, let me just double check this indictment just to make sure. Okay, I'm going to hand it back to you. You're entrusted with this document. They haul it back out.
All right,
With
you guys,
security.
make way.
Make way. Make way for the indictment. Here comes Simba. Okay. So that's the big ordeal. All right, it's signed off and into law. And so the whole thing now drops, and then Big Fani comes out, and she, of course, is going to really milk the 15 minutes, and she is doing it here. Now, we're going to fast forward through this. She's going to read a bunch of garbage, and then we're going to jump into the questions that she gets. She doesn't take many of them because she's so sleepy, and then she's got to go home.
Thank you for joining us. I'm here with the prosecutors and investigators who have worked diligently on the investigation of criminal attempts to interfere in the administration of Georgia's 2020 presidential election. Today, based on information developed by that investigation, a Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state.
Bold claim. We're going to read the indictment.
The indictment includes 41 felony counts and is 97 pages long. Please remember that everyone charged in this bill of indictment is presumed innocent.
Right.
Specifically,
that left a long time
the
ago.
indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump, Rudolph William Louis Giuliani, John Charles Eastman,
Lawyer for Trump.
Mark Randall Meadows, John Cheeseborough, Jeffrey Clark, Jenna Lynn Ellis, Ray Stallings Smith III,
All right, so not going to listen to all of them.
Powell, Kathleen, and Misty Hampton, also known as Emily Misty Hayes. Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with one count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through.
That's RICO. So they're saying that 2 or more people were racketeering. They were colluding. They were conspiring to do these things. RICO allows you to connect all of them under one case, essentially. And then as long as they did some act in furtherance of the underlying effort, then they can be included. We're going to go through all those various acts and why all these people were included.
Participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere to accomplish the illegal goal of allowing Donald J. Trump to seize the presidential term of office beginning on January 20th, 21. Specifically, the participants in association took various actions in Georgia and elsewhere to block the counting of the votes of the presidential electors who were certified as the winners of Georgia's 2020 general election. As you examine the indictment, you will see acts that are identified as overt acts and those that are identified as predicate acts, sometimes called acts of racketeering activity. Overt acts are not necessarily crimes under Georgia law in isolation, but are alleged to be acts taken in furtherance of the conspiracy. Many occurred in Georgia, and some occurred in other jurisdictions and are included because the grand jury believes they were part of the illegal effort to overturn the results of Georgia's 2020 presidential election.
Pausing quickly, it is a distinguishing difference between crimes and acts. Acts are just things that are legal. You can send text messages and do certain things. But if they're done for the furtherance of the greater crime, they can include a non-illegal act, impute motive and connection, that there's causality between the act and the furtherance of the crime, and then prove their case under this type of statute.
The acts identified as predicate acts or acts of racketeering activity are crimes that are alleged to have been committed in furtherance of the criminal enterprise. Acts of racketeering activity are also charged as separate counts in the indictment against those who are alleged to have committed them. All elections in our nation are administered by the states, which are given the responsibility of ensuring a fair process and an accurate counting of the votes. That includes elections for presidential electors, Congress, state officials, and local offices. The state's role in this process is essential to the functioning of our democracy. Georgia, like every state, has laws that allow those who believe that results of an election are wrong, whether because of intentional wrongdoing or unintentional error, to challenge those results in our state courts. The indictment alleges that rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result. Subsequent to the indictment, as is the normal process in Georgia law, the grand jury issued arrest warrants for those who are charged. I am giving the defendants the opportunity to voluntarily surrender no later than noon on Friday, the 25th day of August, 2023.
You hear me, Donald? You better self-surrender by noon on Friday, or else.
I remind everyone here that an indictment is only a series of allegations based on a grand jury's determination of probable cause to support the charges. It is now the duty of my office to prove these charges in the indictment beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. I would like to take a moment to thank the Superior Court Clerk, Shay Alexander, and her staff for staying late and making sure that this indictment was processed.
For leaking the document?
I would also like to thank the men and women of Sheriff Labatt's office for keeping the courthouse open, but most importantly for keeping us safe over the weeks and months that have led up to this indictment, and for what I know they will continue to do.
From your fictional threats that didn't exist? Yeah. Good job, everybody. You protected against nothing.
We also want to thank the Atlanta Police Department and other law enforcement partners who have worked with the sheriff to keep us safe. I will now take a very limited number of questions
Yeah.
prior to going to sleep.
Ask her something.
Madam District Attorney. If you don't mind, Surveyor 1111, quick question. Can you clarify in Georgia the mandatory minimum when it comes to RICO charges?
Mandatory minimum question. What's the mandatory minimum?
The RICO charges has time that you have to serve, so it's not a probated sentence.
So mandatory, you go to prison. It's not probation, is what she said.
What is the time?
Let me make sure that's what she said.
When it comes to RICO charges, whether it's servable by probation or how that might play out?
The RICO charges has time that you have to serve.
Mandatory.
So it's not a probated sentence.
Mandatory incarceration. Okay.
Madam District Attorney, what's the timetable for the trial?
What is the timetable for the trial?
Yes.
As you know, in this jurisdiction, trials are set by the judges. And so it will be the judge that sets the date of the trial. This office will be submitting a proposed scheduling order within this week. However, that will totally be at the discretion of the judge.
And you want to be you're the fourth jurisdiction now to indict Donald.
You're the fourth jurisdiction to file.
You want to be the first to try.
Are you going to be the first to trial?
Any desire to be first or last. I want to try him and be respectful for our sovereign states. We do want to move this case along, and so we will be asking for a proposed order that occurs a trial date within the next 6 months.
There's 19 defendants. There's 19 defendants with 41 counts in a RICO case, and she wants a trial in 6 months. Oh my gosh. Oh, she's so full of crap.
Earlier today, there was a fictitious document, according to the Fulton County Clerk's Office, that was circulated online with charges against former President Donald Trump. That fictitious document matched exactly the charges that we now see in this indictment. Can you tell us more about that document leak?
More about the document leak. What happened? Why'd your office leak the charges? It seems like you already indicted him before the grand jury voted.
No, I can't tell you anything about what you refer to. What I can tell you is that we had a grand jury here in Fulton County. They deliberated till almost 8 o'clock, if not right after 8 o'clock. An indictment was returned. It was true billed, and you now have an indictment. I am not an expert on clerks' duties or even administrative duties. I wouldn't know how to work that system, and so I'm not going to speculate. Next question.
Next question.
Have
Have you talked to special counsel about overlap with the federal cases?
Do I intend to try the 19 defendants in this indictment together? Yes.
And have you had any contact with?
Going to try them all together in one trial.
I'm not going to discuss our investigation at this time. I'm going to take.
What do you make of the arguments made by former President Trump that this is a politically motivated indictment?
I make decisions in this office based on the facts and the law. The law is completely nonpartisan. That's how decisions are made in every case.
Really?
To date, this office has indicted, since I've been sitting as a district attorney, over 12,000 cases. This is the 11th RICO indictment.
11.
We followed the same process. We look at the facts. We look at
Good.
the law.
So we'll have some
and we
things to
bring
compare it
charges.
against. How quickly did the other cases go? All right, they're done. No more questions. She's tired. All right, Big Fani walks on out of Georgia, district attorney. Doesn't answer many questions. Press release on one of the most ridiculous indictments that we've ever heard of. We've got 19 defendants, 41 counts, 97 pages, and she's going to bring this thing to trial in 6 months. Okay, it's not political at all. So Donald Trump issued a response here, and his campaign put this out. They said, look, August 14th, they said, like Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, like deranged Jack Smith, like New York Letitia AG Letitia Tishy James, Fulton County GA's radical Democrat District Attorney Fani Willis is a rabid partisan who is campaigning and fundraising on a platform of prosecuting President Trump through these bogus indictments. Ripping a page from crooked Joe Biden's playbook, Willis has strategically stalled her investigation to try and maximally interfere with the 2024 presidential race and damage the dominant Trump campaign. All of these corrupt Democrat attempts will fail. Combined with the intentionally slow-walked investigations by the Biden-Smith goon squads and the false charges in New York, the timing of this latest coordinated strike by a biased prosecutor in an overwhelmingly Democrat jurisdiction not only betrays the trust of the American people, but also exposes true motivation driving their fabricated accusations, just making it up. They could have brought this 2.5 years ago, yet they chose to do this for election interference reasons in the middle of Trump's successful campaign. He is not only leading all Republicans by a lot, but he is leading against Joe Biden in almost every poll. President Trump represents the greatest threat to these Democrats' political futures and the greatest hope for America. They say the legal double standard set against President Trump must end. Under the crooked Biden cartel, there are no rules for Democrats, while Republicans face criminal charges for exercising their First Amendment rights. These activities by Democrat leaders constitute a grave threat to American democracy and are direct attempts to deprive the American people of their rightful choice to cast their vote for president. Call it election interference or election manipulation. It is a dangerous effort by the ruling class to suppress the choice of the people. It is un-American and wrong. They are taking away President Trump's First Amendment right to free speech and the right to challenge a rigged and stolen election that the Democrats do all the time. The ones who should be prosecuted are the ones who created the corruption. President Trump will never give up and will never stop fighting for you as we all work to make America great again in 2024. And I think this is a great statement. I know that there's a lot of anger and dejection out there because we are now on indictment number 4. But Donald Trump has said he needs 4 indictments to take this thing to victory. And we're just getting closer day by day. I don't think these people know what they are doing. Fani botches the Trump indictment. She's probably going to botch the rest of the prosecution. We'll continue to cover. All right, now let's see what the indictment itself actually contains. Donald Trump secures a victory, gets his 4th indictment, the final one that he needs to get reelected. That's exactly what he said when he posted about this on August 3rd, 2023, 8:42 in the morning. I think this was after the 3rd indictment. He said, I need one more indictment, just one, to ensure my election. And we also were sitting here saying, well, there's one coming. It's going to be the one in Georgia. And this one is probably the most insane of all of them. I know that the federal cases are a little more serious because we're dealing with more serious people in those cases and serious claims in a very problematic jurisdiction called DC. But this indictment is so broad. It covers 19 different people, 41 different counts, and it's going after basically everybody. This is who is encompassed from Big Fani's efforts. We see Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, John Eastman, the White House Chief of Staff, along with the Trump lawyer, Kenneth Chesebro, another lawyer, a Justice Department executive called Jeffrey Clark. Jenna Ellis was a lawyer on this case. Another lawyer, okay, so 1 lawyer, 2 lawyer, DOJ official, 3, 4, 5 lawyers, a campaign official in Mike, a GOP chairperson, an alternate elector, a pastor. Stephen Lee's a pastor. We have Harrison Floyd, who's a leader of Black Voices for Trump. We have this person who's a publicist. Her name is Trivian, a publicist tied to intimidation. Look at her. She looks like a criminal. Sidney Powell, another lawyer. Kathy Latham, an alternate elector. Scott Howell, tied to an election system breach, they say. Misty Hampton, a county supervisor, and another campaign lawyer. So we've got a bunch of lawyers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At least 7 lawyers on this case. All of whom they're saying are now criminals, which is just incredible. So charged in the Georgia case, they list them all there, and we are going to go through the indictment and see how absolutely insane this is before we check out Trump's response. He says they've got something cooking, and it's going to be good in response to this new Georgia indictment. So here it is, Donald Trump's 4th indictment from Big Fani Willis in Georgia, filed out of the Fulton County Superior Court, August 14th. The clerk signs off on it, and you see all the different charges. Now, all of these we'll go through in a little bit more detail, but there's a bunch of them. The big defendant here, Donald Trump. Some of the others who stand out, of course, we've got Giuliani there. We know we've heard of John Eastman, the lawyer. Jenna Ellis is there. She's on Twitter. And we've got Sidney Powell, somebody we talked a lot about her filings and lawsuits here. Bunch of charges: conspiracy, forgery, conspiracy to commit forgery, false statements in writings, conspiracy to commit false statements in writings. You see how this works? So the underlying offense and then the conspiracy to do the offense. And these are also very duplicative. So it's the main charge, the main Georgia charge, the RICO, and then all of the other crimes underneath with the predicate acts which justify the charges. So it's solicitation. Asking somebody to do something is soliciting it. If you wrote something, crime. False statement and writing. You wrote it, crime. Wrote it, crime. Asking, crime. Asking, crime. Wrote it, crime. Impersonating a public officer. That's going to be a false elector, alternate elector. Then you get conspiracy to commit the thing. Okay, so it's like 2 charges for every act. It's the act and then the conspiracy to do the act. Same thing, forgery and conspiracy to commit forgery. False statements, conspiracy to commit false statements. Same thing with documents, same thing with forgery, same thing with false statements. And then we've got different criminal attempts to influence witnesses and violations along with more writings. Writings, filing documents, influencing witnesses, blah, blah, blah. All right. Signed here by the grand jury foreperson. And my understanding is that in Georgia, they actually do release the names of the jurors who were a part of this. And I've seen conflicting stories about it. But Fani Willis is the DA who is the person who spearheaded this whole thing. And as we fast forward through the document, we'll see here there was some question about this, but my understanding is that they actually do publish their names. And so this was what was included in the indictment. There was some issue with this. People were saying that's not normal, but they were published. So that is still being contested, I believe. But they published it, so presuming that they did what they're supposed to do. You see, this is the table of contents with all the various counts, and we'll just get right to it. The grand jurors on count 1 do hereby charge and accuse all of the people, all 19 of them, in violation of the RICO Act. What is this one? The overarching umbrella charge? They say that on and between Election Day, November 4th, and the 15th of September, 2022. That's a long time ago. That's almost a full year ago. So that's when the final date of the violation, the conduct was. Why didn't they bring charges within 6 months? That would have put that would have put us back in. They should have brought charges immediately in September. Why did they bring charges in October or November of 2022? Why are we now in August? While associated, unlawfully conspired and endeavored to participate in racketeering activity. And that's basically 2 or more people doing a thing. So here's the introduction. Fani writes, Trump lost the presidential election in November. That's debatable. One of the states he lost was Georgia, also debatable. Trump and the other defendants charged in this indictment refused to accept that he lost. They knowingly and willfully joined a conspiracy, all of those other 18 people, to unlawfully change the outcome for Trump. It contained a common plan or purpose, conspiracy language, to commit 2 or more acts of racketeering in Georgia. At all times, they say all of these people unlawfully conspired, you know the names. What did they do? They did a bunch of stuff. And what they did constituted a criminal organization that brings this under RICO, whose members and associates engage in various criminal activities. False statements, writing, influences, witnesses, computer theft, computer trespass, invasion of privacy, and conspiracy to defraud, including theft and perjury. My goodness, this is pretty crazy behavior. This is like gangster. All right, let's see. Theft, perjury, trespass. The criminal organization constituted an enterprise under RICO law, and they operated all over the place: Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, New Mexico, blah, blah, blah. They say, here are some of the manners and methods that they used. False statements. They would say members of this enterprise, this conspiracy, included several defendants. They showed up in hearings in Georgia and they made false statements about the election. And they wanted to persuade, you see that, persuade Georgia legislators to reject the lawful electoral votes. And you can make the argument that, well, if the executive, remember, the way that these elections are supposed to be structured is the state legislature, an independent branch of the government, sets the rules of the election. Oftentimes, the legislatures delegates that over to the executive branch so that the Secretary of State and the people who govern the elections in the executive branch who actually conduct the elections can have some decision making and some changes. But when the executive branch usurps the power of the legislative branch, then there's an argument that the legislative branch can say, hey, we never gave you permission to do those things. No thanks. And you did a bunch of things that we think are problematic. And so because we have the power to govern elections, we are going to reassert our authority as a separate but equal branch of government and propose and nominate alternate slates of electors in a legitimate fashion. They're calling those people now felons, those people who were involved in that process. Members of the enterprise corruptly solicited Georgia legislatures instead to unlawfully appoint their own electors. All illegal. They say that there were false statements made to solicit high-ranking officials to do some things. Several defendants made false statements to Georgia officials, asking them to violate their oaths, saying that they created and sent false documents, false electoral college votes, got sent in to the archivist and the Secretary of State. So these felony criminals were sending in their crimes to the Secretary of State. They said, hey, just so you know, we're stealing the election from Georgia. Here are alternative electors. Here you go. Can't wait for you to charge me with a felony. Or not. Or they were engaged in a legitimate process that happens in this country. The false documents were intended to disrupt, they say. They also harassed and intimidated election worker. This guy, Ruby Freeman, falsely accused Ruby Freeman of committing election crimes, and other people harassed her, and therefore what they've done is illegal. Their false statements is illegal. They solicited DOJ officials. In one instance, they say Donald Trump told the acting attorney general to, quote, just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. And I'm wondering if that's in Georgia or, so we'll continue on. Soliciting of the vice president. They say that Trump also asked Mike Pence to do some stuff and that members of this defendant class unlawfully access secure voting equipment. Now we're going to see more about what these various acts are. There was obstructive acts. They said that they filed false documents, made false statements, committed perjury, so a bunch of process crimes. And these are the acts, all right? So that is the general nature of the allegations. Obstruction, unlawful breach of election equipment. So they say they stole data and ballot images. Now we're going to see, is this when they inspected them? When they were invited to inspect them? Or was this they hacked into their systems and stole the data? Here are the acts. So dumb. All right, on the 4th day of November, Donald Trump made a speech and he falsely declared victory. So that's an act. He gave a speech that says, I won. All right, any other Democrats ever done that? I wonder if they're going to get indicted. Here, 4 days earlier, they wrote a contingency speech. Donald Trump discussed a draft speech with an unindicted co-conspirator, don't know who that is, whose identity is known, that falsely declared victory and claimed voter fraud. So they had an alternative speech if they lost. Great. So they had a conversation about what to say if they win and what to say if they lose. They say that's an act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Guess what? Every other political candidate in America has those things happen. They have questions and conversations about it. And guess what? If you're going to lose an election by guess what? Voter fraud, if that's a legitimate thing, then you can claim that. You can come out and say the other side stole the election from me. How did they do it? Voter fraud. But now that is, I guess, illegal, and it's a conspiracy to say that. If you lose, you're not allowed to say that anymore. If you come out and say, or even have a speech about that and say, hey, the only reason we lost this election, I'm going to come out and say is they stole it from us. Conspiracy, illegal. Rudy Giuliani called somebody, left a voicemail. The telephone call was about fraud in Georgia. That phone call is an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Giuliani called somebody, left a voicemail. Illegal. I've never seen anything so egregious, quite frankly. Rudy, you should be ashamed of yourself, sir. Here we have another one. Rudy and Sydney and Jenna. What did they do? Oh my gosh, they showed up at a press conference. And they made false statements. They were conspiring and violating RICO. Here's the fourth act. Somebody named David James sent an email, stated that a bail bondsman has been looking into the election on behalf of the president. So looking into the election, an overt act. All right. Here's another one. We got Donald Trump and Mark Meadows. They met with the majority leader of Michigan in I don't know what we're talking about Michigan for. This is Georgia. They made false statements in Michigan. And Rudy Giuliani was on the phone. Conspiracy. Mark Meadows, chief of staff, he sent a text message. Oh my gosh. It must say like, we're going to steal the country, right? No, it says, can you send me the number for the speaker and the leader of the Pennsylvania legislature? POTUS wants to chat with them. Illegal, in furtherance of the conspiracy. Felony text messages. Another one from Trump and Giuliani. They placed a phone call to Arizona. Shout out to Arizona. They had a call with Rusty Bowers, and they made false statements to him, and they solicited him to join them. And he said, no, I'm not going to break my oath. That was another act, another phone call. Rudy, Jenna Ellis, they showed up in Pennsylvania. Donald Trump joined the meeting by telephone, made false statements of fraud, and those were overt acts. So this is just standard post-election response stuff, just showing up and just contesting an election. It's all totally legitimate, or it used to be in this country. Here's another one with Rudy, Jenna, and Trump. They invited a group of the Pennsylvania legislators to meet with them at the White House. Overt acts. Rudy and Jenna called Pennsylvania. Overt act. Rudy called Pennsylvania. Again, these are all in Pennsylvania. So it's like, what are we talking about? We're in Georgia right now. Mind your business, Fani. Another Pennsylvania phone call. They placed a phone, Pennsylvania, another one, Act 14. Pennsylvania, Act 15. 15's Pennsylvania. This one's in Arizona with, okay, fine. You have a Georgia case. This one, finally, Act 18. This person, Michael Roman, coordinated with Georgia. Now we have Trump and Mark Meadows. They asked that this guy, John McEntee, create a memo for outlining what we can do for January 6th. Yeah, you can do legal research. The strategy included having Mike Pence only count half the votes. They say that was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. This is called legal research and preparing your legal claims. This is another one from Phoenix, Arizona, which I think is just way outside the scope. I mean, this is not a federal investigation. Why is she spending all this time in Michigan and Arizona? Act 22, we get another one. Finally, we're back in Georgia. On the 3rd day of December, Donald Trump caused to be tweeted. He said, Georgia hearings now on One America News Network. Amazing. That is an act in furtherance of a conspiracy. Trump tweeting to watch the TV, turn the hearings on. Illegal act in furtherance of a conspiracy under Fani Willis. Here's another one, solicitation of people in Georgia. This one's actually in Georgia to do something. Here we go. Now, in a Georgia Senate hearing, Rudy Giuliani showed up and presented evidence. They say that at least 96,000 ballots were counted, despite being no record of those being returned. And they talked about the Dominion system and that those statements were in furtherance of the conspiracy. So here are the other false statements. So when they were in front of the Georgia Senate, Rudy, or this guy actually, Ray Stallings, made false statements. So he gave all these facts. These felons voted. These number of underage people voted. These people were not listed as registered to vote. These people illegally registered using a certain address. All in furtherance of the conspiracy. Another illegal Trump Twitter. Wow, blockbuster testimony taking place right now in Georgia. Ballot stuffing by Dems when Republicans were forced to leave the large counting room. Plenty more coming. But this alone leads to an easy win of the state. Illegal. Another illegal tweet. People in Georgia got caught cold bringing in massive numbers of ballots and putting them in voting machines. Great job, Brian Kemp. Illegal. Again, we go back to Pennsylvania before coming back to Georgia. Trump called the president pro tem of the Senate in Georgia. That phone call was illegal. Trump also called Governor Brian Kemp and solicited and importuned Kemp to call a special session. Illegal. Trump posted another illegal tweet. Gee, what a surprise. Has anyone been informed the so-called Governor Brian Kemp? They could easily solve this, but they didn't. Sidney Powell also entered in with an agreement to assess some data. Sidney Powell's being charged unlawfully breaching equipment in furtherance of the conspiracy. John Eastman got charged for working with Georgia. Here's another one with a Georgia senator. Another one with the Georgia House of Representatives. How many different acts are there? We've got a Rudy Giuliani tweet. It's tweets. It's phone calls. And are we just going to go through this for the Act 83, Act 105, Act 112? All right, we're fast forwarding through. Look at this. Oh my gosh. They just vomited out a bunch of social media posts and phone calls. All right, fast forwarding to Act 127. Bunch of people called each other. They placed a telephone call, multiple telephone calls. Here we go. We're getting closer to January 6th now. But this is not in really her jurisdiction. They say on January 5th, Trump met with Vice President Pence. And they told Pence that he had the power to decertify the election. When Pence stated it was his duty to support and defend the Constitution, Trump stated that Pence was doing a great disservice. Okay, so these people are calling each other. Again, they're calling each other. Trump says to Pence, you got to be tough tomorrow. This is all happening, I imagine, outside of Georgia, outside of the jurisdiction of Georgia. More telephone calls. This is a strange situation. She's acting like she's a federal prosecutor, going all over the country. Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Now we're back in Georgia. This is computer theft, which I think they're just saying that the access was computer theft, so they might have expanded their scope or something. They say the unindicted co-conspirator, they were transmitting all of the data that was copied, and Sidney Powell let it. More solicitation charges. So it's basically everything that they think was a problem. Look at all of these acts. Oh my gosh. It's just amazing. And then we get all the various counts. In conclusion, wrapped up by Fani Willis. She's going to get this thing prosecuted in 6 months for 41 counts. This is one of the most insane things you've ever seen. This is so overbroad. They are covering up perfectly legal conduct, making it now illegal. And they're going after conduct in multiple different states that are not even within her jurisdiction. She's using RICO against a former president that is involving a whole slew of lawyers with 19 defendants, co-defendants, and she's going to get all this done in 6 months. What this leads me to believe is that this is not a serious thing at all. This is not a serious prosecution. This is just throwing a bunch of garbage at the wall to make it stick. And some of it will, because it's 98 pages of it, and it encompasses everybody. And so whether or not this thing actually goes to trial, or Trump is convicted, or if Trump might be convicted and appeal and win, that's not the point of this. This is just a big, disgusting mess that they dropped on this entire group of people to bog them down, to slow things down, and just to muddy the waters up. I don't think she's serious about getting actual convictions as much as she is, which she may, but she's more interested in just stalling the Trump effort by dragging him and everybody else who's associated with him through the mud. So it's going to be interesting to see what the judge does. I have no faith that this is going to be done in 6 months. Trump is issuing a response, he says. A large, complex, detailed, but irrefutable report on the presidential election fraud which took place in Georgia is almost complete and will be presented by Trump, at a major news conference at 11 a.m. on Monday of next week, Bedminster, New Jersey. Based on the results of this conclusive report, all charges should be dropped against me and others. They never went after those that rigged the election. They only went after those that fought to find the people who rigged the election. So we'll see what his report says. Now, I don't think that even if Trump came out with 100% concrete proof that the election was in fact stolen out of Georgia, that it would change anything. This is not about the law. This is not about justice. It's about dragging Trump through the mud with 19 defendants and 41 counts so that he can be focused on defending himself, and all of those people are focused on defending themselves rather than doing good work for the GOP or the Trump campaign. And anybody else who even thinks about helping Trump or says something that might be a felony according to Big Fani, they're going to be chilled. They're going to be pushed aside and just say, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out. That's the point. So Trump is going to issue a response, but at this point, the facts just don't matter. It can be whatever they want to do. They'll just create the charges and go anyways. Amazing. All right. And so we've got some reaction on this before we get to the Hunter stuff. Let's see what the Democrats say about this, including with Hillary. Now that Trump has been indicted, we have a new standard by Fani Willis. And under this new Big Fani standard, we're very concerned for Democrats. They have committed so many felonies. We're waiting for their indictment to come any day now. But Hillary and Maddow, two people who've committed many felonies by denying elections, by claiming that presidents were illegitimate, by doing the same things that they're indicting Trump for, they're kind of oblivious to that. They're instead just sitting around laughing it up, yucking it up. This is such a sad state of affairs, and it's just a big funny joke. Shout out to the Storm Redux for clipping this.
I can't believe this. Yeah, this is not the circumstances in which I expected to be talking to you. Nor me, Rachel. It's always good to talk to you, but honestly, I didn't think that it would be under these circumstances. Yet another set of indictments.
Yeah.
Do you feel satisfaction in that. You warned the country essentially that he was going to try to end democracy, but most of the country didn't believe.
She's satisfied.
Well, it's hard to believe. I don't feel any satisfaction. I feel great, just great, profound sadness that we have a former president who has been indicted for so many charges that went right to the heart of whether or not our democracy would survive. And we don't know yet what the charges coming out of Georgia are, but he set out to defraud the United States of America and the citizens of our nation. He used tactics of harassment, intimidation. He made threats. He and his allies went after state officials, local officials responsible for conducting elections. Now we know they even went into voting machines in order to, determine whether or not those voting machines had somehow been breached when they were the ones actually doing the breaching. The only satisfaction may be that the system is working, that all of the efforts by Donald Trump, his allies, and his enablers to try to silence the truth, to try to undermine democracy, have been brought into the light, and justice is being pursued.
Yeah, well, we're hoping that justice is also pursued against Hillary Clinton, who has committed major violations of trust with the American people, including when she had her classified documents problems and her insurrection of Benghazi, all sorts of problems that she never got indicted for or raided for. But when it comes to elections, she's saying that Trump was dishonest, and she was saying that he and his people were trying to deviate the public perception about the true nature of the outcome. And he should be indicted 4 times for it. But didn't Hillary say this?
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
Oh, felony. Oh, no.
Illegal. How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's
what
real
I'm
thing.
scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
Kamala,
He's
felony.
an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016.
RICO.
He lost the election, and he was put into office.
Put his butt on there. He's a co-defendant.
Russia
RICO
interfered with our election, attacked our democracy for the sole purpose of artificially placing someone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They were successful.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president or elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see
Wadler Jerry.
president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
The one thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
Wow.
I have an objection.
I object to the
That's
15 votes of the
Raskin.
state of North Carolina. I object because people are horrified.
He's an illegitimate president.
Our election was hijacked. There is no question. Congress has a duty to hashtag protect our democracy and hashtag follow the facts.
John Lewis is completely right. There is a cloud of illegitimacy around the election of Donald Trump.
People.
The Russians interfered with his election. James Comey and the FBI interfered with his election. The fake news industry interfered with his election.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president who got illegitimate foreign help.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
There absolutely is a cloud of illegitimacy.
So that legitimacy is in question, yes.
So that was a very tainted election, and in that sense, it's illegitimate.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he knows he didn't. He knows he's an illegitimate president.
Wow.
Stolen emails, stolen drones,
Karine Jean-Pierre.
stolen election.
Get her too.
Welcome to the world of unprecedented Trump.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract,
He tweeted in February 2018, quote, "The more we learn about the 2016 election, the more illegitimate it becomes. America deserves to know whether we have a fake president in the Oval Office."
The Russian attempt to have the election, and frankly, the FBI is weighing in on the election, I think makes his election illegitimate.
There was a widespread understanding that this election was not on the level. We still don't know what really happened, Isaac.
Wow.
I mean, there's just a lot that I think will be revealed, history will discover, but you don't win by 3 million votes and have all this other shenanigans stuff going on and not come away with an idea like, whoa, something's not right here.
Hillary, how the stories change. So when she loses, it's rigged, Trump stole it, it's Russian information, Russian hacking the election, blah, blah, blah. But when Trump loses and he says exactly the same stuff and does the same stuff that she did, much closer margins in many of these other states, she didn't have those same legal arguments to make, or didn't make them. Maybe she could have made them, but didn't. But Trump's allowed to make them. So she goes through and is laughing now for committing the same conduct that Trump did. And Rachel Maddow is doing the same thing. Here's another clip from her.
We are still every day dealing with this question of whether or not our president was chosen, not just because of a foreign intelligence operation. We're grappling with this existential question as to whether his campaign was part of that foreign intelligence operation.
Russia,
Vladimir Putin, Russia, hates Russia, Putin,
Russia, all the time. That's all they said. So I think that they should all be indicted. There should be a RICO case opened. Some attorney general in some states should just open one. It doesn't even matter. If Fani Willis can just find a couple things in their local state and then go to Michigan, Arizona, Pennsylvania, wherever, then why not? Indict them all, because they've all done it. Now, if you want to just focus on Georgia only, I know there's a lot in this segment, but we got Stacey Abrams next because she ran for governor in Georgia and has been crying about it for years, and nobody indicted her. Here's 5 minutes of Stacey doing the same thing.
I do have one very affirmative statement to make. We won. But I didn't lose. I got the votes. But we won't know exactly how many because of how they cheated. I did win my election. I just didn't get to have the job. We were robbed of an election.
Using the word rigged, using the word steal, do you think it's dangerous going into 2020?
I don't, because we can actually back it up. And so in response to what I believe
indict this woman
was a stolen election, and I'm not saying they stole it from me, they stole it from the voters of Georgia. In fact, someone outside asked if I'm ever going to concede. The answer is no.
This is not a speech of concession. Because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. And I will not concede because the erosion of our democracy is not right.
People are going to make you mad. They're going to steal your election. It was not a free and fair election. I think the election was stolen from the people of Georgia.
I believe it was stolen from the voters.
Thousands of Georgians had their voices stolen because they were not able to cast ballots. And they cannot be guaranteed that their votes will be counted in 2020 if we don't do this right.
If what happens to you happens nationally, and we see whoever wins the Democratic nominee, if they say, actually, I can prove that there's a number of votes in every state and that the same thing that you just described happens in multiple states, should they concede?
I do not think we should concede an election until we know the results of an election.
Wow.
I still fundamentally believe
that's interesting. That's almost like what Trump did.
Be fair. And that's just not how life works. If it looks like it's cheating, it probably is.
Yeah, that's true.
If it looks like it's rigged, it probably is.
Thank you for that one. Thank you.
Invalid, in fact, it's uncouth to call a question. That if you want to run for office again, you got to concede the election so that everyone knows you're a good sport. I'm not.
I said that the election was stolen from Georgia voters. The process that took place during the legislative cycle was one that did not countenance and did not pay attention to the deep and real concerns of those who watched this election be stolen in the state of Georgia. It was stolen from the voters of Georgia. As long as we have...
Wait a minute. Was that testimony in front of a Senate hearing? Oh my gosh. She testified in front of a Senate. Ted Cruz, a federal Senate. And she said that it was rigged in Georgia. All right. Well, as we know, Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, They're all being charged with crimes for this in Georgia. And Big Fani Willis apparently is not even investigating this woman. Look at all these statements she has.
From the voters of Georgia. As long as we have eligible American citizens who cannot cast a ballot, then the game is rigged. I am complicit if I say that that system is fair. Concession in the political space is an acknowledgement that the process was fair. And I don't believe that to be so. Okay. But I refuse to...
All right, well, there you have it. There's about 35 felonies just right there in the first couple minutes. We know that Hillary committed a bunch of them. Hakeem Jeffries committed a bunch of them. Rachel Maddow committed a bunch of them. So we're very sure, since we don't live in a system where there are double standards, of course, everybody is equal justice and nobody's above the law, as they keep telling us. We're going to wait for their indictments to come any minute now. Thank you for subscribing, as we do. All right. And so we have some final news to get to. And this is, of course, some juicy, fun stuff. Hunter Biden's prosecutors reject his claim. We know that his lawyers said, no, we've already got immunity. We already executed the diversion deal. It's in full force and effect. Hunter is immune from everything, including the special counsel inquiry, because the immunity covered all of the conduct from Hunter's prior years. And this emerged after a very interesting battle that took place in court. We know the Biden DOJ, as corrupt as can be, created this rigged deal with Hunter and the DOJ so that he could get basically everything dismissed and blanket broad immunity. The court rejected the plea deal, but Hunter's lawyers told the court to get bent, to pound sand, and basically to F off, and said, hey, you, judge, you don't get to come and interfere in a private deal, in a private diversion agreement between the United States and our client, Hunty. And it's done. So they told the judge, the defendant, Hunter, and his counsel wish to thank the court for its attention to this case, which is attorney speak for get out of here, right? To get bent. You're done, judge. You have no jurisdiction over this. This is a private agreement between the defense and the government. But unfortunately, for the defense, doesn't seem like the government agrees with their take. They say the diversion agreement was already created and in effect. The government says not. Here's what they filed. 7 pages out of the District of Delaware with our very estimable judge, Judge Norika, who didn't take guff from these people. Says in the United States of America versus Robert Hunter Biden, the United States is now replying in support of its motion to vacate the court's briefing order. So the Hunter's attorneys said, Judge, we're done with this case. Thanks for being here. And the court ordered the prosecutors to respond and said, do you agree with this? Are we really done here? Do you agree that we entered this diversion agreement? Prosecutors respond. They say, all right, Judge, we know you ordered us to respond here. Here it is. First, they say government prosecutors did not renege on a previously agreed upon plea agreement, like Hunter's lawyers say, as the defendant, Hunter, inaccurately asserts in his first substantive sentence of his response. Ooh, things are getting a little tense here. They say Hunter chose to plead not guilty at the hearing on July 26. And U.S. Probation, which is the entity that would govern the diversion agreement, they declined to approve the diversion agreement at the hearing. So that immunity deal that Hunter's lawyers say is done, government says no. Thus, neither proposed agreement entered into effect. And this is the only thing that they could say. If they said that there was any other immunity, then that means the special counsel that just got appointed is moot. It's basically nonsense. Because even if there was a little immunity, there would be no need for a special counsel. It'd already be a done deal. So the government says instead, as of the end of the hearing on July 26, the two proposed agreements were just drafts, all right, that either party could propose changes to. And both parties did propose changes to it following the hearing. Now, if you remember Hunter's lawyers, they said, no, Hunter's already been living by the terms of this deal. He's already been calling and not doing drugs and staying in accord with the law and all that. And they say, well, that's nice, but he didn't sign an executed agreement. Without going into the substance of the negotiation, the government prosecutors say, in the afternoon on the day of the hearing, Hunter's lawyers asked to meet with the government. So we did. When we met, Hunter's lawyers proposed changes to both documents. They said, all right, let's change the diversion deal. Let's change the plea deal. The government considered Hunter's lawyers' proposals, but did not believe they were in the best interests of the United States because they got busted, right? If Hunter's lawyers are saying, let's hard encode this immunity, hard encode it. And the government says, we can't because the judge just busted us. We tried to do that. The judge literally just called us out on our first rigged attempt. So they're saying, let's try to re-rig it. And the government says, we can't now, brother. Like, we just got busted. So we said we could offer counter proposals and we can craft something different, but it's obviously not going to be as broad and immune as it was before, because there was a lot of immunity in the gray area of these two deals, which is why they drafted them that way. So the lawyers say, we offered counter proposals on July 31st. We gave him an alternative. We said, we'll put this here, but it's not going to be blanket immunity. And during the hearing, the government said the same thing. And they asked Hunter point blank. They say, hey, would you take this plea deal if you are not granted immunity? And he's like, no. And then they took him back in the closet and they said, hey, say yes, you screwed that up. So they brought him back out. She asked him the same question. And he says, yeah, now I'll take it. Hunter rejected these counter proposals on August 7th. Doesn't like the new deal. So the government says, seeing that the parties were at an impasse, the government informed Hunter in writing on August 9th that it was withdrawing the most recent version of its proposed plea and diversion agreements. So this makes what those defense attorneys did even scammier. It's incredible what Hunter's lawyers have done. They told the judge that the deal was already done, even though they got notice that the deals had been revoked. They said, hey, judge, it's already done. The judge is going to be furious about this, I'm sure. That is why the government has asked the court to vacate its briefing order and to dismiss the criminal tax information. Hunter's lawyers didn't even address that because they say the diversion deal already granted immunity. So the prosecutors continue. They say, second, Hunter makes the factual assertion that the government drafted much of the proposed agreements. And we saw that when we covered their filing. They said, we didn't even draft this. Assuming for the sake of argument that is even true, the prosecutors say who drafted the language is irrelevant. Doesn't matter. It's the language itself that controls. And third, while Hunter claims that he was prepared to plead guilty to the charges on the tax information, his answers to the court's questions demonstrate otherwise. At the hearing on July 26, the government summarized the proposed plea deal. At the end of the government summary, the court sought to ensure that Hunter's plea did not, quote, result from promises other than contained in the plea, which is required under the federal rules. The court asked Hunter, addressing him personally like the rule requires. The judge said specifically, Mr. Biden, does the written agreement as summarized by Mr. Wise accurately reflect the agreement you've reached with the government? Hunter says, yes, Your Honor. The court then asks Hunter, has anyone threatened you or forced you into entering this written agreement? Hunter says, no, Your Honor. Has anyone made you any promises that are not contained in this written agreement? But before the defendant could answer, Hunter's lawyer, Mr. Clark, interrupted and prevented the defendant from responding to the court's question. Because they did. Has anyone made you any promises that are not contained in the agreement? Okay, they asked that so that they protect against the backroom deals. They obviously did promise him a bunch of stuff. The government promised them. There's not going to be anything coming. Hunter was going to answer that question wrong. And so the defense attorney jumped in. Here's how it went. Defense attorney says, Your Honor, with the exception of the diversion agreement. Judge says, we're not making an exception. I want to know right now, has anyone, Hunter, made you any promises that are not contained in the written memo of the plea? Because the judge is going to say, if they did, they're not valid, right? They're outside of the terms. So you better tell me now if you think there are, they're not. And she's asking Hunter, has anyone made you Hunter? The attorney says, yes, Your Honor, there are promises from the government in the diversion agreement, the separate document. And she says, okay. And Sir Hunter, are you relying on the promises made in the diversion agreement in connection with the agreement to plead guilty on this other case? Hunter, yes, Your Honor, I am relying on those promises. Hunter, if that separate agreement, which contains those promises, were not valid or unenforceable for any reason, would you enter into this agreement? No, Your Honor, I wouldn't. At that point, the government says, the court, by the plain terms of Rule 11, could not accept a guilty plea as knowing and voluntary. The rule says, ensuring that a plea is voluntary, you got to go through these rules. And at that point, Mr. Clark and his client were both telling the court that Hunter was pleading guilty because of promises that were not contained in the plea. This was a problem entirely of their own making, and not one that resulted from the drafting of the proposed plea or diversion. The final paragraph of the proposed plea agreement, in paragraph 13, expressly states, it is further agreed by the parties that this memo and Exhibit 1, along with Attachment A, supersedes all prior promises, and that this memo may be modified only in writing by all parties, and that any and all promises, representations, statements made prior to or after this memo are null and void and have no effect whatsoever unless they comport with the subsequent written modification of this paragraph. So the government says, look, Judge, the plain meaning of this text is that the parties are not relying on promises outside of the four corners of the proposed plea agreement, the four corners of the page. The proposed plea agreement. Obviously, the proposed plea agreement did not contain paragraph 15 from the diversion, which was the immunity paragraph or anything like it. Therefore, it was not a promise contained within the proposed plea agreement. And fourth, Hunter asserts that his understanding of the scope of immunity that was agreed to by the United States was and is based on the express written terms of the diversion agreement. He then asserts that his, quote, understanding is corroborated by prosecutors, by their contemporaneous written and oral communications during the plea negotiations. He says they were negotiations. We're allowed to have statements like that. That's why they're called negotiations. Without conceding that the latter is true, he says it's irrelevant. The very last paragraphs of the now withdrawn plea and the diversion agreements state that the agreements supersede any prior conversations. So if they want to reference my prior statements, it doesn't matter. This supersedes all of it. And that this is now the complete term of the agreement and there are no other agreements. What both now withdrawn agreements expressly stated, so he says they are withdrawn, was that it was the agreement themselves and not the written and oral communications during the plea negotiations that dictated the scope. And fifth, the government says, as noted above, the proposed diversion agreement never took effect. And Hunter misstates the record when he claims that the government made statements to the contrary. Hunter claims in a footnote that the government stated in open court that the diversion agreement was a bilateral agreement between the parties that stands alone and that it was in effect and binding. But those cobbled together snippets did not add up to a statement that the proposed diversion agreement was in effect. The government never said the proposed diversion agreement was in effect because it is not. And in none of the portions of the transcript that Hunter's lawyer cites in this footnote did the government say that the diversion agreement was in fact in effect. In fact, the government said the opposite. In response to a question from the court, the government explained how the diversion agreement worked as follows. Prosecutor said at the hearing, I think practically how this would work, Your Honor, is if Your Honor takes the plea, if you take it, and signs the diversion agreement, which is what puts it in force as of today, and at some point in the future we were to bring charges and the defendant thought that they were encompassed by the factual statement in this agreement, they could move to dismiss those charges on the grounds that we had contractually agreed not to bring the charges that are covered here. They cite a footnote. They say, Hunter's citations are also misleading. That's where I was going with this. I think they're being dishonest to the court. Hunter's lawyers never mentioned any of this to the court. They never mentioned that there was a revocation of the plea or the diversion deal. They're lying to the court by omission. Hunter states that the government stated in open court that the diversion agreement was in effect. The only time the government used the words in effect were in response to a hypothetical. The court, so his lawyers are just very shady, very dishonest, and the judge is probably going to blast them on this. The court question was premised on a hypothetical situation, and they just pulled it out of their own. Typical figures. They say the government's statement that the agreement goes into effect if the court signs it is a recognition that the signature of the probation officer was necessary to put the agreement into effect. Ms. Bray is the head of an office within the court and would be acting at the court's direction, as was made clear in the hearing, when Ms. Bray declined to sign and approve the agreement. Yeah, they say, to reiterate, government prosecutors say, Hunter Biden, the now withdrawn diversion agreement, by its own terms, is not in effect. Sorry, Hunter, no immunity from the government. Paragraph 1 of the agreement expressly provides that the term of this agreement shall be 24 months beginning on the date of approval of this agreement, unless there is a breach. Paragraph 2 further provides it requires approval. Ms. Bray, the probation officer, declined to approve the agreement at the hearing. The version of the agreement that Hunter docketed has an empty signature line for Mrs. Bray. So even though Hunter signed it, Ms. Bray didn't. She didn't approve it. Immediately below the text of approved by. In some, they say, Ms. Bray, acting in her capacity as the chief probation officer, did not approve the now withdrawn diversion agreement. It never went into effect, and therefore, none of its terms are binding on either party. This is so messed up. I mean, this is so botched. It's unbelievable. The government created this whole deal. Then they tried to enter it. Then the judge rejected it. It's so botched now that Hunter's team is claiming immunity and the government is having to backpedal and defend against their own deal that they started to enact. It's crazy. It's like bizarro land. And the only reason that they're now having to backpedal is because the judge busted them and they have to save face. What happens if this judge comes back and says, sorry, Hunter's immune. You guys signed the deal. I mean, the law says it. She's not going to do that, but she could. And Hunter's lawyers could be victorious. And it would be because the DOJ either wanted this to happen or they intentionally botched it. I mean, they are total incompetent. All right. They are now backpedaling to defend not entering a deal that they created themselves, that they tried to cram through. Now they have to say, no, we didn't intend to do that. It's like a joke. All right. So similarly, the deals have not gone into effect. The government's letter to the court in August, which stated the government's position should be docketed, it did not state that either agreement had entered into effect because the agreements had not gone into effect. Respectfully submitted by David Weiss, special counsel, actually written and signed by Leo Wise, who was the actual prosecutor who was there at the time. So the government is backpedaling big time to try to fix what they've already done. And the judge wants an update on this. So has said that Hunter and his people need to respond to the filing. And we've got nothing too new here on the court docket. So the judge is going to want a brief on this from the defense, and she'll issue a ruling. Of course, we'll continue to follow. But the media is now saying Hunter Biden is under attack. This is just the Republicans investigating a private citizen. Forget about the IRS whistleblowers. Forget about the text from Hunter saying he's sitting right next to daddy. Forget all the dinners, all of the golf outings, all of the speakerphone phone calls, all of that stuff. No. Hunter is just an innocent person who is being attacked by those evil Republicans.
Congress needs to stop investigating a private citizen and stop this fishing expedition to try to link President Biden to Hunter Biden's conduct.
Hunter Biden's being subjected here to a level of not only scrutiny, but accountability that most mere mortals would not.
Hunter Biden, he could be a terrible guy. I don't know, never met him, is being treated worse than anyone else would be.
This is the son of the president. He's not the candidate. He's not a political officer. Doesn't even begin to compare to classified documents and to the indictment here in D.C.
It's just the standard talking points. They got the memo. Protect old Hunty. Just an innocent guy, you know, and those Republicans are just picking on President Biden's son. Ted Cruz has some reaction to this. Calls it all political. Don't forget to subscribe to his podcast, okay?
The timing is nakedly political. Every time more bad news comes out about Hunter Biden or Joe Biden, you can set a stopwatch. Within hours, some clown goes and indicts Donald Trump again. And then all of the little lemmings in the media go run and say, Trump, 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 Trump. Look, last week, the House Oversight Committee released bank records that showed that Joe Biden's family and associates received over $20 million from foreign sources while Joe Biden was vice president. So just when he's in office, over $20 million. Let me ask you, is there anything on earth, Sean, that Hunter Biden could do for you that would be worth $20 million? Well, if you're a Ukrainian oligarch or a Russian oligarch, I guess so. And if you actually go just after the vice presidency, Hunter and his family got another $8 million from the Chinese communists. You know what just happened last week? Last week, the statute of limitations ran on the $8 million that flooded to the Biden family from the Chinese communists. You know who let it run? David Weiss, the U.S. attorney who is obstructing justice, who is blocking an investigation.
Amazing.
And what did Merrick Garland do? He named him a special counsel, which is disgraceful. As you know, I do a podcast every week, Verdict with Ted Cruz. Today's podcast goes through why David Weiss's appointment is illegal. It is directly contrary to DOJ guidelines that say that it has to be someone outside of the Department of Justice. Merrick Garland doesn't care. He's ignoring the law. But more importantly, it's supposed to be someone with integrity to prosecute. And David Weiss has shown that he's willing to block prosecution of Hunter, to allow the statute of limitations to go forward, and to allow apparatchiks on his staff to protect Joe Biden, to say, no questions about the big guy, no questions about Joe Biden. It's why you've seen two senior IRS career whistleblowers come forward. And it's why I believe we're seeing an indictment likely tonight, because the media wants to change the topic.
Yeah, and they want David Weiss just reappointed so he can continue this giant scam. I mean, he's already been pretty good at keeping Hunter Biden out of real serious criminal trouble for the last 5 years or so. So what's another 5 years? We'll just make him special counsel. It's like, hey, yeah, just appoint this guy. And the media, they say that Hunter is under attack when really we know that almost nothing has happened to the Bidens at all. The real people they're attacking is Donald Trump. And as per usual, when they're doing something like prosecuting and attacking their political opponents, one of the things they do is just claim they're not doing it and blame the other side. The standard affairs, the standard tactics from the Democrats, of course, we'll continue to cover. Things are going to get spicy in this Hunter battle. I think the judge is going to be furious that the defense tried to pull one over on him. Of course, we'll see what it looks like as we continue to cover. Thank you for subscribing, my friends, and following along as we do. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, we covered some good ground today. We've got the immunity claim from Hunter and his defense attorneys. We hit the felony litany from the Democrats. I'm waiting for them to all be charged with crimes. I know there was a lot in this one. We had Hillary, we had Hakeem, we had Rachel Maddow, and we had Stacey Abrams. I apologize. We have the indictment, which was one of the strangest things ever. It's referencing multiple different locations. It's like a federal indictment. It almost reminds me of what I thought the January 6th indictment was going to look like, except dumber. And then we have Fani Willis botching the announcement and having a very strange press conference. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say. Of course, courtesy of our friends over on watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our friends on YouTube, our amazing Rumble friends. I appreciate all of your generosity and incredible support. Let's see who is in the house. And a reminder, by the way, our new website, robertgovea.com. Great place to sign up for the mind map. So if you saw anything on the mind map that you liked, you want to download, check out the videos, download the PDFs, robertgovea.com is where you can do it. Sign up for our daily newsletter right here, and you can read the reports and get access to all of the latest stuff that we cover right there. And so let's see who is in the house. Big thank you to our mods for clipping away for us today. We got John McGarvey says, are you in the land of living, V? Apparently V was very sleepy. V had a late night, I think, which is good. Hopefully it was amazing. We got this one from CFRBW says, Rob, there is a Democrat YouTube content creator called Goodman who supports Trump. He's been predicting that Hillary will be the nominee. If it happens, it's going to be 2016 all over again. That's an interesting one. I'm not sure. Could you imagine? It sounds terrible. It's either, Hillary, Newsom, Michelle, who knows? Patrick Parker says, I believe that poor Hunty Poo is getting harassment when my money turns purple and smells like rainbow sherbet. Yeah, I think it's going to be a while, Patrick Parker. Probably not going to be happening anytime soon. We have this one from Vienticus. Says, Rob, we've decided you need to call it the meme map and use only meme photos of all these jokers from now on. That's a good comment, V. Yeah, that would be a lot. That would be a fun mind map, no doubt about it. Meme map, indeed. We got Dolphin Fan is the man, bringing in 5 new membos. Thank you, Dolphin. We had a lovely members-only morning stream this morning, and we'll have another one tomorrow morning. Welcome, new members. True Neutral, Darren M. We got the old bag, Gail C., Mary P. coming in. And so our new members, don't forget to grab our Telegram link on the community tab section on YouTube, which is where our after party is going to be taking place. And Dolphin Fan is the man. We got Jennifer Newman sharing a very nice, very mellow Shibu Inu. Thank you very much, Jennifer Newman. Shibu Inu. I think that's a crypto, right? We have 2012 Jameson says, I sent you a few good emails this morning. Thank you, Jameson. I'll take a look. Norman says, courtroom theater in Georgia. A quickie? Like a quick indictment? Well, it wasn't that quick. It was like 14 hours yesterday. I don't know what else is going on over there in Georgia, but thank you, Norman. Rob White says, let me see these blank pages. All looks good. Yeah, that's the judge. The judge is like, oh yeah, this is very complicated here. A very serious indictment. And it's just a ream of copy paper. There's nothing on there. Good to see you, Rob. 1R5 over on Rumble. Thank you, 1R5. And shout out to our friends on Rumble. Our Rumble is looking beautiful. We're growing slowly but surely over there. Let's see, where are we at now? We've got now, we're almost at 41,000, baby. We're at 40.9. Whew, I knew we were getting close. We're almost at 41,000. So thank you to our Rumble friends. If you're not already following on Rumble, help us get over that hurdle. That would be a lot of fun. But 1R5 says, heck, why even have a trial? Just post a verdict. Save a lot of inconvenience. It's true. Trials are a lot of work. We didn't even need a grand jury to get the actual charges. So do we need a trial to get a conviction? Not really. It's just efficiency. Thanks, 1R5. Jenny B says, shout out to Zulu, who I believe was the first member. Is that true? Jenny B has been a member for 16 months. Man, that is a long time. I'm going to have to go look that up. I wonder if I can look that up. Shout out to Zulu, indeed. Shout out to Zulu, who was maybe the first member. That might be true. I'll have to look that up. Regardless, we appreciate all our members. We love you, Jenny. We love you, Zulu. Thanks for being here and being so amazing. 16 months has been a long time, Jenny. That's almost 2 babies. Wow. We've got Jameson says, Fani Smith and corrupt grand jurors are real false electors. Fani Smith and corrupt grand jurors are the real false electors. There's no evidence that Fulton County is qualified to run an election. That's true. It's never been proven in a court of law that Fani is a competent person. Nobody has proven that. And based on what we've seen, there's evidence to the contrary. We've got Patrick Parker says, William Shatner's calling. Stop being so overly dramatic, Big Fani. She was kind of yelling at us the whole time. kind of screaming at us. We're all like, what are you so dramatic for? This isn't acting class. Calm down. We've got Dean says, this is revolutionary kindling insane. It is insane. And I know we're talking about peaceful revolutions here where we get our communities strengthened and, focused on voting and peaceful political activism. Will be nice kindling to retake this country. Good to see you, Dean. And thanks for the super chat. We got Catherine says, this Fani person makes me want to blank. Seriously, I'm trying to be civil, but it is extremely difficult. Well, it makes you want to vote harder, donate to Trump or something, support a local effort, something like that. That's where we're going. We got Norman says, Fani has a shrill tone, wonky countenance, and angry speech pathology. Trump wins again. You're right about that. I was wondering what we were going to hear from Fani because we haven't heard much from her. The last time we heard from her, she was on with Rachel Maddow, actually, now that you mention it. And she was not a very good communicator back then either. I was like, who is this person? Weird interview. McLovin says, when do we get our pitchforks and torches? Well, I mean, peaceful pitchforks and torches, I think are appropriate as long as they're peaceful. We had this one from Ian Mack says, our administration is so good, you cannot even question our results. Also, Georgia can't even release a document correctly. That's a good point. That's a good point. Hey, wait a minute. Isn't this whole case about bad documents? Like Georgia can't process documents. Georgia can't process electoral vote documents. Like you vote on a ballot, they can't handle it. And then in the indictment, charging Trump with saying that is not true, they screw up the documents. It's incredible, right? No. Our election was perfect. We scan everything, everything's stamped, everything's appropriate. And then then their court computer just starts printing out Trump indictments. You're like, what is going on? Just like they were printing out Biden ballots. Now we just get Trump indictments just printing out. All of a sudden, you just turn the printer on. It's a Trump indictment. Well, it's weird. Yeah, so it is a strange thing. Hey, General Kale says media loves talking about how Trump has to face all of these women of color like it's a reckoning. I know, it's funny. Multiculturalism is a fancy word for the old tactic of divide and conquer. They've been saying that a lot. We saw that one woman on MSNBC say that about Judge Chutkan. No, it was about Judge Upadhyay. Remember Judge Upadhyay who did the arraignment in D.C.? That woman on MSNBC was like, Judge Upadhyay or something. And we're like, no, that's not how you pronounce it. And she said, well, it's a very cultural thing, They're all excited about it. So I don't know. They treat people like trading cards and they label everything, like everything gets a label on it. They're those weird people. But all right, Rob White says the person interpreting the law is biased, probably paid by the Biden crime family. Trump won't serve a day in jail. Well, he's going to have to show up for his arraignment there, and I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but I tend to think you're right. I don't think the Secret Service would allow that to happen. Thanks, Rob. We got Daniel Henry says, should Gal Sharpton's next target... Gal Sharpton. Oh, gosh, that's beautiful. You're talking about Stacey Abrams, a.k.a. Gal Sharpton. Next target for Georgia election interference be gap-tooth romance novelist and Star Trek president of Earth Agency, Stacey Abrams. Wait a minute, I got to read this again. This is just incredible. Should Gal Sharpton's next target for Georgia election interference be gap-tooth romance novelist and Star Trek president of Earth, Stacey Abrams, for never conceding the 2018 gubernatorial race? Stacey Abrams did show up on Star Trek, didn't she? I think I remember that. Let's go to the tubes. Let's go to the tubes. Oh, she did. Oh my gosh, it's too funny. All right, my friends. Here is the gap-tooth romance novelist, president of Earth, Stacey Abrams. Here she is. The president of Earth. She was on Star Trek. I happen to like Star Trek, you know. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I grew up watching Star Trek. But that was with Captain Picard. I mean, Captain Picard was, you know, definitely not Stacey Abrams. All right. So, okay. So she did show up, I guess, on Star Trek. Anyways, should Gal Sharpton's next target for Georgia? Yes, I think she should. She should. She should be indicted immediately. Indicted immediately for undermining American democracy. Yeah, the next generation. I mean, that's you know, that's good stuff, baby. All right, we got SD 1985 says, if we are lucky, we may witness all these prosecutors charged with the first ever RICO case on election interference. That would be great. Yeah, the entire special counsel's office should be indicted for doing what they're doing. Passport Bro's here. What's up, Passport Bro? Says, hey, Rob, just a question. How can you overturn a presidential election before the electors are counted? Well, it's a good question. It's when they've already decided it for us. Yeah, when they've already decided Joe Biden wins before we even vote, and then you challenge their stolen election, that's how they indict you early. It's a great question. I think that they can like manipulate the future because they know what's going to happen before it happens, or maybe they cause it. Good question, Passport Bro. Thanks for modding down the fort. Fred Pedamonte says, Young Thug, another RICO case by Fani Willis in Fulton is in its 6th month and they haven't even done voir dire yet. She's literally out of her mind. From our friend Fred Pedamonte. And yeah, she seems kind of nuts. Like, it seems kind of nuts. Like there's not even actual intelligence behind it. John McGarvey's here. John Allen, John McGarvey clipped that. John Allen's in the house. Thanks, John. Says, Rob, all these axes are making it difficult to work today. Yeah, Fani Willis had a lot of axing to do. Thankfully, you always help bring the BS to us in a way we can tolerate. Thank you for all that you do and your ability to be jovial under these times of BS hitting the fan while the rest of us are boiling under the collar. Thanks, John, for that. Well, we got to have fun. You know, if we are dejected, if we let ourselves become dejected, we let ourselves become defeated. And so we cannot let ourselves be dejected. We have to have optimism, and one way that I know I get it is I'm inspired by you and the work that we do here, and we're going to keep having fun, baby, and we're going to keep driving this train forward, and we're going to win in the end. Thank you, John. Griff says, Rob, you have thrown your hat in the ring. Have you thrown your hat in the ring as a defense lawyer for any of the accused? Could be some business for you. Maybe they should all give Dershowitz. Well, Griff, you know, I thought about getting back into some practice, but I think we're kind of in the spot we should be. I'm in the chair that I should be in right now to do the most good in a way that I can do it, right? It's called a unique ability. Like, this is something that I talk to people about all the time. Like, how do you find what is your unique ability so that you can live in alignment with your purpose? And although I like practicing law, I think that this is a way for us to be more impactful. And there are other amazing lawyers out there like Dershowitz and others who can do the litigating with, you know, the boots on the ground that needs to be done. So I appreciate the endorsement, Griff, but I think there are other better attorneys out there to do it. Fact says, axed my upside the head with this indictment. Fani's full of crap. Yeah, a lot of people getting axed out there. Be careful out there. A lot of axing going on in this show. Should have issued a warning on that. Make sure you're minding your axes. Thanks, Facts Matter. Hey, Catherine Rex says, OMG, this is beyond stupid. 98 pages of it. Rob White says, arrest Hillary. She claimed the election was stolen all over the news and even in her book, I'm sure. Felony book, news reports, overt acts, evidence, says Rob. You're dead right about that. I mean, 98 page Hillary, it's got to be hundreds of pages of election problems. She should be arrested immediately. Catherine Rex says, Trump sneezed on TV. Conspiracy. These are in other states and counties. Let those people deal with it if they want. None of this is legit. From Catherine Rex. Yeah, I feel like they're living in their own little bubble and they're just very satisfied with themselves, but I'm not sure they recognize what they're doing. V says, I find it interesting that people shy away from doing people's same actions against them, especially in situations like these. I know I've asked a child on more than one occasion, How would you like it if it were done to you? Well, that's the thing, is the Republicans aren't playing with the same tools. The Republicans just keep sending letters and going on Fox News and saying that they're going to do something like an impeachment inquiry or something. It's like, oh gosh, you guys are pathetic. You're going to get steamrolled, obviously, because they're playing with swords and you're playing with noodles. We got Monkey Phonics is a new supporter. Welcome aboard, Monkey Phonics. We'll see you in the after party, hopefully over on Telegram. Rob White says, Jack Smith had to assemble this. This is crap. I don't know if he is. It resembles a J6 type of inquiry. But I don't know. We got this one. Facts Matter sending this one in for the Red Pen Fund. Yeah. Thank you, Facts Matter, for that. The red pen, you know, that red ink is very expensive. It adds up. So I appreciate that, Facts. I'll get some fresh pens. We had another one from Vienticus. Says, I'm pretty sure we've gone from having lobbyists write huge legislation that people vote in without reading to having them writing huge indictments that people sign off on without reading. That's a good comment, V. Yeah, I mean, we didn't even read through the full indictment because it was so dumb. But I'm not even sure it's about the law, right? It's such just a big, gross meat sack that they just drop it and see where it goes. Tara says, 155 acts, give or take, outside Fulton County being used for fundraising. Not within her authority and blatantly corrupt. Can SCOTUS intervene sua sponte? They could. SCOTUS can do whatever they want. Will they? No. Absolutely not. I don't think that they will. Now, I agree. I think this is a jurisdictional problem. It's an insane jurisdictional problem. And Tara, you did the math on that. There's 155 of them that are not even in Fulton County. That's insane. How many total acts are there? I mean, we didn't count them all, but where did it go? How many acts were there all the way at the end? 143. Oh, is that the total count? 155 acts? Anyways, so it's just a wild story. So, Tara, thank you for that. And I doubt that the Supreme Court's going to do anything. They always could, but they won't. Count Drago says, one of the few honest voices out there. Thank you. Thank you, Count. There are a lot of honest voices out there. It is harder and harder to find them, but I appreciate you being here, Count. We're going to keep it up. Thanks for joining us. Rocky Water says, shenanigans. Cheers to the word of the year. And it is. There's a lot of shenanigans going on. Shout out to our friend Rocky Waters on Locals. We got CFR says the cloud of illegitimacy around President Trump is Democrats. Well, they keep saying that, yeah. Everything that the Democrats do, they accuse the other side of doing. It makes them feel better. Tara says, Chuck Schumer denied Trump's election, and Hillary learned how to breathe through her eyes over her TDS, no joke. They're so giddy that something will blow up in their faces, and I'm here for it, not sorry. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like, you know, when your opponent is doing something and like tripping all over themselves and grasping, you kind of just stand back, stand by, just kind of hang out, let them spin themselves into a tizzy. And they think they're doing this great heroic work, like Fani probably had champagne that night, you know? It's like, you guys are way in over your heads. You have no idea what you're doing. Vienticus says, people keep using the term Trump TDS. That's not the issue. That's not the mental illness. Blind obedience is the mental illness. An unquestioning nature is the mental illness. This is because the absence of thought, especially independent thought, is the result of our brainwashed society. From Vienticus. Chugi Show says, I have a feeling we will find out it has already been litigated that other place means places not in Georgia and that it's sadly perfectly legal. Yeah, that she can go into other states. I'm sure she can have some authority for it. I mean, she did it. If she did it without authority, that would be nuts. But the fact that so much of it is out of state is just kind of wild. You know, it's, why would a prosecutor do that? That's, if the feds think there's this federal operation, they can charge it. She didn't have to charge as RICO. She didn't have to go violate all those things, but she did for a reason, to get everybody. We got Bonnie's in the house, says, I saw Judge Fink, George Allen Kelly yesterday reject 4 plea agreements, and the Hunter judge had every right to reject the diversion agreement since it needed her approval that she'd handle any violations of the diversion agreement. I agree with that. Yeah, they dragged the judge back into it, Bonnie. They said that she would be like their little self-appointed judge to deal with any problems with the diversion agreement. It's nuts. Why would the judge do that? She wouldn't. Good to see you, Bonnie. Tara says the Biden scheme over the amicus before hearing did him in. If they hadn't pulled that, I doubt there would have been any scrutiny on the deal. He can't get out his own way. The scheme over the amicus before the hearing did him in. Talking about Hunter, good comment, Tara. I appreciate it. Just Me says, well, since you're already a co-conspirator for reporting on the Big Fani in Georgia, I'll chip in for your lawyer. Thanks, Just Me. I'm going to need it. I'm going to show up in the next indictment. Can you be my lawyer since I'm according to Big Fani? I'm also a part now since I sent a chat to a conspirator. Yeah, it's true. Everybody who sent in a super chat today, congratulations. You're now a co-conspirator, including you, Just Me. And you called her Fanny. She's not going to be happy about that. And you said Big Fani too. You're in as much trouble as I am, buddy boy. We're going to need some lawyers. All right, Just Me. We'll start a GoFundMe when we all get indicted. All right, we got Michael Allen Hughes. Says Lindsey Graham is the new Judith. He wasn't indicted. Yeah, you know who else wasn't indicted was Lynn Wood. A lot of people noticing that. What happened to Lynn Wood? Sidney Powell got indicted. Where's Lynn? Good to see you, Michael. We got Rocky says, I don't think I've heard the government explanation in the Hunter case as to why now they are no longer agreeing with the terms of the diversion. Why don't they want to go forward with it as originally written? Or has that changed between 3 weeks ago and now? Or are they saying the defense has changed their mind? Sorry if it's a silly question. It's not a silly question. It's a great question, but it's a complex question. There was a whole breakdown in the change of plea proceeding. Basically, long story short, is the judge called them out on provisions that they didn't want to answer questions about. She pinned the government down. They had to answer that it doesn't offer immunity. Otherwise, they would have looked foolish. And then Hunter didn't like that answer, and then the whole thing just fell apart. So it was a mess. But now they have to stay dug into the new position. Norman Smith says Weiss' appointment is proof that the Biden and the DOJ are in cahoots. Yeah, it feels like they're just... Well, first of all, Biden runs the DOJ. So, yeah, so it's... But, I mean, the point is, it's like... It's doubling down on the already corrupt bargain that they were squeezing through from Norman Smith. Jia Zhang, been a member for 18 months, baby. Woo! That's a long time, Jia. That is 2 full babies. 2 of them. I think you need a little more time than that so that the woman can recover. I don't know. Can you squeeze 2 of them in 18 months? I'm not an expert on the children, fortunately. Hey, Michael Allen says media is pushing propaganda from the usual suspects, as we see. The usuals come through. Hey, Jia Zhang says, I fat-fingered my message. Great show as always. Thanks, Jia, for being here. And thanks for being a member for so long, man. We've covered a lot of ground in these 18 months together. And we're just getting started, baby. Going to be a lot of fun ahead. Trust 2 Kids is over on Rumble. Says, thanks, Rob, for another screaming stream. Especially enjoyed the Triple Crown winners, Killary, Mad Cow, and Crazy Stacey. Yeah, that segment was a little rougher than I anticipated. It's like, you know, a lot of Democrats and like some kind of nutso Democrats. From Trust 2 Kids over on Rumble. We got B-Man says, does president have immunity unless he's removed by impeachment? No. So the president has... No, the president doesn't have general immunity for criminal charges just because he's the president. Now, there are certain things that they'll say that they can't be brought during the term, like the president will have delays in prosecutions or like Trump had a bunch of cases that were all stalled while he was the president, but then those all reactivated right after the fact. It's an interesting question from B-Man. Thank you for sending that. Michael Allen says, Alan Dershowitz nailed it yesterday on this case. He does good work. Salty Sarge says, exactly when did Michael Strahan transition? I don't even know who that is. Was he on here today? Hopefully it's going well. Catherine Rex says, Stacey A just wrecked my whole life. Star Trek. I know, I was disappointed by that as well. Didn't realize that she actually appeared on Star Trek. A little bit painful to see. Tara says, Hillary and Simon & Schuster need RICO charges, and whoever her ghostwriter was for what happened. Is this National Lampoon does elections? It should be. Yeah, Chevy Chase could run the elections. Put him in charge. A lot of people should be indicted. Betrayed by corrupt scumbags is here. Says, has been a member for 8 months. Thank you so much for being here for 8 months. Almost a full baby. We got Nuremberg 2.0 is the answer. New trials for all of these corrupt scumbags. John Allen says, Rob, every day you get on here with a smile and a perky attitude. It amazes me you're able to do this. I know that I can never do that because I have my off days and just don't have the mood to be cheerful. And honestly, you help so many of us process the crap in these times. Thank you again. Well, thanks, John. Well, you know, listen, I have bad days too. And there are days when I have stuff that happens right before the show and I'm like, you know, and yeah, I'm as human as anybody. I have my ups and downs, but we've also got important work to do. And I have a lot of systems in place, like automatic sprinkler systems to remind me to be present and to, it's a work in progress, John. Like it's a work in progress, man. I am constantly trying to improve and try to share and try to connect because we have a lot of down stuff going on in this world. And honestly, the show is inspiring to me, right? When we get here and do this work together, it is something that inspires me. The fact that you're interested and concerned, that you care about these issues, it motivates me. It says, we've got work to do, man. We've got work to do. It doesn't matter, Rob, if you're feeling upset. It doesn't matter if you're feeling depressed or whatever. We've got business to attend to. So let's get to it. Thanks, John. I appreciate the support. All right, we had another one from Jeremiah. In case anyone doubted the gap-tooth romance novelist's claim, I introduce you to Selena Montgomery, aka Gal Sharpton. So I didn't really get that, but I like the name Gal Sharpton. I think that's just hilarious. It's too funny. So that was, apparently there's an actual book, Oprah Daily. Stacey Abrams is Selena Montgomery. She writes romance novels. Oh gosh, that's too funny. Gal Sharpton, love it. All right, First Amendment says, because I appreciate you and your hard work. Thank you, First Amendment. I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for being a Locals member, and thanks for supporting us on this lovely day. Jigum, and we thank you for what you do, Rob. And this was another good meme that Jigum created. Let's see. We have it. Here it is. Yes, this was another fun one. Corruption? No. Get out of here. That's right, baby. That's right. We've got work to do. And here's another one to smash that like button from our meme smith extraordinaire, Jigum Geegum, in the house. Thank you, Jigum. Thanks for all the lovely support. Facts Matters here with Axes and Peaches. Axes and Peaches. Thank you, Facts Matter. And Bodida says, do you think Trump is continuing to run in order to put the deep state on display? I think that's one component of what he's doing. I mean, I think he wants to run for a lot of reasons. I think there are, of course, some self-interested reasons, but I think he's also got a passion for the country. I mean, I think he wants to have a legacy and do good for the country. And he also wants to show us all this stuff. So I think there's multiple reasons, but this is one definite effect of him running. We are seeing it on display. We've got Angie's here. Angie, thank you for sending in your first super chat on our YouTube channel. It's a big one. The first step's always the hardest, you know, but we're glad you did it. We're glad you're here and we appreciate it. Love Trucks says, love the live. Thank you, Love Trucks. You love trucks too. I love trucks too. Trucks are pretty great. We have this one from Viva Maga says, oh, I saw this. Signed into the wrong account. Karine Jean-Pierre. The Flack actually tweets for Joe. I saw this. Yeah, Karine posted this today. She deleted it. Says, investing in America means investing in all of America. While I ran for president, you did? I made a promise that I would leave no part of the country behind. She goes, oh crap, I'm on the wrong account. Delete. Jeremiah says, the amicus before comment, that's when they had the lawyers pull the fast one on the judge's clerk and try to remove the filings. But what case, Jeremiah? Is it in Georgia or in a 2022 SCOTUS case? That's where I think I'm confused. I can't remember which one. All right, we'll have to see. Crash says she was asked about Fed charges overlap and she ignored the question. Right, because she's acting like a federal prosecutor for some reason. We got Bella G's here. Thank you, Bella. Saying thank you. Bella G in the house with a nice thank you. Shibu. We got Jameson says, you are a Coke conspirator. Prosecute heavily. Like Coca-Cola or like Coke at the White House? Tara says, I didn't count. I think there's 160 acts. LOL, yes. And the brief that Hunter's team had removed from the docket. He made the judge look more closely at the case. Oh, I see. Like, yeah, they tried to... Yes, when they called and they tried to remove the thing, the judge took a second look and is now paying extra scrutiny. I remember. Jeremiah, that's the same case. I got it now. Yeah, that's the one. Thanks you. The team effort on that one. Thank you for helping me mash it together. That's the one. Yeah, because Hunter's lawyers called in. They tried to get the filing off, and then the judge is like, what's going on here? This one came in from Catherine. Rex says, can we all go get our law degree? Everyone go get a box of Cracker Jacks. The name Cracker Jacks is probably racist, and this roller coaster is on fire. Are Cracker Jacks still a thing, or has that been racist? Do they have to rename themselves? Those are also delicious, by the way, racist or not. Coke Machine says, can Trump just start to just ignore all of this and wait for the Supreme Court to intervene? He could ignore it, and they would issue warrants for him, and it'd be very curious what they do with that. Go arrest him, send Dog the Bounty Hunter after Trump. And the Supreme Court, I don't think, is going to voluntarily intervene. So something will have to be filed for them, up to them. I don't think that they're just going to do it on their own. We had this one from CFRBW says, Rob, you need to be Trump's VP. You have his attitude. I think I do have a little bit of attitude. And, you know, I think that's a great idea. Somebody should tell him. I'm ready and willing and ready to serve, Trump. Just make the call. All right. Thank you, CFR. We've got Operation Paperclip says, did you say that FBI let 8 million go because of the statute of limitations? I have a 20-year-old bill, so I don't have to pay? Well, I think it was a tax crime that would have recovered the 8 million. So if they would have prosecuted the crime, the restitution would have been 8 million to come back. Jesser Bob says, Rob, not sure if you've seen this, but young Vivek has been an amazing speaker his high school. I don't think I've seen that one, Jesser Bob, but I do know that he did some rapping back in his day. So that looks like a good one. Vientikis shared this one, says, Cracker Jacks are a nickname for the Navy dress uniform. Also, personally, I've learned a lot of law by watching all you guys. Well, yeah, and V, I can't tell you how much I've learned by doing the show, right? By having every day, okay, we've got to assemble a show here and, you know, come up with content and learn stuff and dissect it all. We're all learning in public here. We're all going through it together. So I'm learning as much as you guys are. I mean, it's really like a fire hose. And Vector20 says, hey, bud, longtime fan. You still doing law at your firm? No, I exited the firm in February. Or are you doing YouTube full time? If both, you're a hella busy guy. Much love. Tony L. Tigre. Yeah, I was extremely, extremely busy. I was running 2 things and it was a lot. Now I'm just extremely busy running 1 thing because that's just kind of how I am, unfortunately. I think fortunately, I actually like it. But we've got a lot of stuff cooking and we're working on a lot of fun stuff here behind the scenes, including I'm setting up a new interview setup here. So actually our locals members, tomorrow morning, I'm going to share with you what it looks like now. It's a work in progress, but we're working on, we want to do interviews. We want to start doing more content with incredible people, and we're grinding away. We've got a lot to accomplish in 2023 and into the election year in 2024. John McGarvey says, Tremendous says, hey, Rob, I have no idea if Zulu was your first member, but I can tell you this. When I found you in August, I went back and watched all your streams. Zulu was in the live chat from the beginning. He's a ton of fun. Even though I never interacted with him, I think we were part of some interesting conversations on Discord. I want to echo and shout out Zulu for all of his years of support to the Watching the Watchers community. What a nice comment from Tremendous. Is Zulu in the house? What a nice comment. Zulu has been around for a long time. Tremendous, you've been around for a long time. August 2022 is a long time. The show officially started like on Wednesdays, 1 day a week in March 2020. And then when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, I think in 2020, we decided to go every day. And it's just been a wild ride ever since then. So a lot of fun. Now, thank you for that one, Tremendous. Coke Machine says, who could get near him with dedicated Secret Service? I'm not sure. That's the thing, is I'm not sure Secret Service would actually allow him to be taken into custody. So we had another tip come in from Victor Gatto. Thank you, Victor. Says, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Victor, right back to you. And K. Bean says, Rob, can Trump bring in evidence of 2020 election flaws, or is it up to the judge? So it's going to be either, well, it depends on the case and it depends on the judge. So it depends which case. So in Georgia, I would think that he would be able to respond to every one of those acts with evidence that shows that those acts were in furtherance of a legitimate investigation, and that he could take that as far as he would want to go. Now, the judge, right, the judge can limit what they're allowed to say and how far they can go with their rulings. And we saw this in the Proud Boys trial. The analog would be like the Proud Boys trial. The Proud Boys could talk about some things about what the government was doing, like they got, I think, conversations about 8 of the co-conspirators, or the government agents, the undercover operatives. They got 8 of them admitted in front of the jurors, but the other 50 that they wanted to get in were excluded. So it just depends on what the judge's rulings are. That one was from Victor Gatto and K. Bean. Thank you for that one. And we got John Allen says, just so V has to move the bird again. Over from John Allen. I appreciate that, John. All right, well, we are going to skip Twitter today, my friends, because we are running out of time on our locals, and we're going to spend a few minutes over there on locals for our after party. And so we'll leave it right there. So Twitter friends, we'll see you tomorrow. But that is it for us on the day. And so one more reminder to check us out, robertgovea.com on the website, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we're hanging out for a bit for our after party. Fieldofgreens.com, code Robert to save your 15% off on your first order. Major ultra shout outs to our incredible mods and our meme smiths. Vientikis Prime, K Bean in the house, Just Cause. We got Playin' Hooky. We got Ronnie Cole. Zulu's here. Beyond Geo. Zach Nichols, our friend John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, and John McGarvey, all in the house. Thank you to our meme smiths. Geegum in the house with some spicy ones today. Sleepy Dog Lee and our friend Nathan N810. But my friends, thank you to everybody who made this show possible. Keep the train on the tracks. Our mods and meme smiths, we love you. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. And so we are going to leave it right there. We'll be back here tomorrow to get into more and it all again. And so we hope you join us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for inviting somebody to come and check out the channel and the show. We've got a lot of business to attend to. And so we'll be back here tomorrow to do it all again. And we hope to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.